Hey guys, hi everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Hello guys. Hi everyone. Good morning. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? Good morning, Adil. Good morning, Ashutek. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So people are joining. We will wait 1 or 2 minutes for the rest of the people to join. Although I can see only 4 people have joined as of now, but let's wait few minutes and let's try to start our class, start the session in few minutes only. So in the meantime, let's set up the environment and then accordingly we are going to start our class. Please put a message in the WhatsApp group and ask your friends to join as soon as they can. Okay. So let us set up the environment in the meantime. So we are currently discussing a project. So let me try to open this project here, project folder, and let me try to open it with code. Perfect. Good morning, Basu. Good morning, Pavani. Good morning, Sadi. Good morning, Ankit. Good morning. Good morning. I hope I'm audible as well as visible, and my screen is also visible, right? Is it? Is it, guys? Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for the confirmation, Ashu. So currently we are discussing our JavaScript, and we are just left with 1 or 2 classes of JavaScript, including our project session. Although there are a lot of things that we can discuss, we have to discuss in JavaScript, but I think we don't have enough time. But definitely we are going to discuss rest of the things as well. Uh, and today's class is one of the very important classes, one of the important classes. Why? Because we are going to create a small project, not full-fledged project. Why? Because we don't have enough time to create wonderful projects. That's what you have to do on your own, taking help from the internet or on your own as well. And you can take help from me as well, but depending on if you are working on those projects, okay? So we won't be able to create the full-fledged project because of time constraint that we have. But yes, whatever time we have, we will try to create a small project, but an effective project. Of course, you cannot put that project on your resume, but of course, you can get a few very good ideas like how things work, what are the things that you have to keep in your mind, how you can build a logic related to a particular thing that we have. But unfortunately, I can see only 10 people here that have joined. So we cannot start our class with 10 students only. So we have to wait 1 or 2 minutes for rest of the people to join, and then accordingly we are going to start our class. In the meantime, let's quickly try to revise what we have discussed in our previous class. If you guys remember, in our previous class, we had a discussion related to promises. We had a discussion related to asynchronous JavaScript. We had a discussion related to async await. Okay. We try to understand that when we talk about promises, promises are one of the very important structures in our JavaScript that allows us to perform operations where we are not sure what's going to happen. That's why in future we associate our asynchronous handlers depending on if it is a success or if it is a failure. If it is a success, we let it know this is what you have to do. If it is a failure, this is what you have to do, right? And then we understood when we put async keyword in front of a function, how my function is going to behave. As soon as we put async keyword in front of a function, what is it going to do? It's going to actually create, it's going to tell the same function to return a promise. And then we understood await is nothing but simply letting my call stack or letting my engine over there know that you have to suspend the execution for some time, give the control to something else, and let's wait here so that it can actually execute what it is supposed to be, what it is supposed to execute, right? So that's what we have understood. I'm not sure why the rest of the people are, because I can see only 10 people here. What's the issue? Why have other people not joined? Because if they do not join, rule. If they do not join, then unfortunately, I don't think we can continue our class because I can see only 10 people here, right? And that's definitely not acceptable. So let's see. Baiduj. बायदूज, अच्छा अगर बायदूज थी तो बोलना था ना. Today because of Baiduj we may be, but I think in that case, if that is the issue, let me try to confirm that. If that is the issue, I think we can reschedule our class. It's completely okay, right? जब भी ऐसा कोई फेस्टिवल हो ना, बासु एंड एवरीवन, प्लीज लेट मी नो इन एडवांस, ठीक है ना, बिकॉज आई यूजुअली एम नॉट श्योर अबाउट दीज फेस्टिवल, राइट? And I end up scheduling a class. So whenever we have something like this, please let me know in advance so that we can actually plan our class likewise, right? Good morning, Anil. Good morning. Good morning. We cannot continue with just 10 students. That is the issue, Adil, right? So it's a project session. It's a very important session. And according to the survey that I have done with respect to this class related to our, whether we talk about Google Classroom or all the assignments, there are 29 students who are very serious. Okay. So for those 29 students, I am expecting that most of them should be here. I think we can, as of now, continue for some time, right? Shall we? And let's expect how it turns out for the next 10-20 minutes. If things work out well, then we are going to discuss a small topic. We're going to complete that small topic, and if they do not join, then we are going to end our class. Okay, depending accordingly, right? So let's see. Of course, yes, there are 29 students, and you are one of them, Adil. I completely agree with that. Okay, so let's continue. I'm not going to start a project immediately, but there's a small concept which we have to understand and learn first. What is that concept, guys? Uh, we have discussed a lot of web APIs, have we not? Yes, we have. Like we have discussed document object model, we have discussed fetch, we have discussed timers, we have discussed XYZ things, right? Right. Please, S25, I'm not sure what your name is. Please do that. I'm looking for a person who can do that for me. Okay, so that will be really helpful for me. Throttling and debouncing, they will be discussed in our next class, surely. In our next class, these concepts, throttling, debouncing, and a few other anonymous topics, they will be discussed in our next class. Okay, see, the project that we are going to create, it entirely depends on APIs. API that contains lot of data. Let me give you an example. Let's suppose I will go on internet and I will go on a website called as News API. There's a website called as newsapi.org. Now, if you go on this particular website, you can see that actually there is an API that it's going to allow you to have, on which you can make a request and you can simply get lot of data out of this API. Okay, let's hope it works. If it does not, we will see how to deal with it. Okay, so you can see that we have this API. Okay, if you try to make a request on this, see how much data we can get here. And there are a lot of data that we can get once we make a get request on this API. And if there is a lot of data, what does that mean? That means we can create a very good website out of it. If you remember our yesterday's class, we had an API, a very small API, right? A joke API, on which when we tried to make a request, it simply gave us a small object with 3 properties. But think of an API that has a lot of parameters as well, not just a straightforward API, but a lot of parameters in it. And you can clearly see once we try to fetch the API, we can see a lot of data. Total results once made a request on this particular thing is 5,946 articles. So you can clearly understand how big of an application you can create. Although I'm not going to use this API for today's project, I'm going to use a different API. But the point that I'm trying to make you understand is that when we discussed our APIs yesterday, I showed you an example, that joke API. The joke API was very small API that we had, very small API, right? But on the other hand, if you try to make a request on this API or any other API, very big APIs, you can clearly see as soon as you make a get request on this API, although it is taking a little bit of time, but you can clearly see how much data this API holds. Now, there's one very important point that you need to understand, which is, and note this point down. As a front end developer, whenever you work with APIs, you do not directly start writing code for that API. You do not do that. The first and the most important task that you should go and you should come across is you should definitely, no matter what, read the documentation of that API. For example, if you see, when I try to make a request on this particular API, this is how much data it actually gave me. Now think about it. If this is the API it gives you, how big of an application we can create? While this API gives you news articles of today's world, today's date, based on what the Tesla is. So based on it, it searches news articles having a query of Tesla. You can change this Q parameter to something else, and it will give you news articles about that particular entity. So my conclusion over here is, do not start working on API directly. If it is a straightforward API like yesterday joke generator API, it's a straightforward. There are 4 parameters, simply implement them no matter what, right? It won't change. But look at this particular API that we have. We can clearly see over there. Once I try to make a request on this particular API, how big data set it actually gave me. Now, if there's a huge data set, what does that mean? That means we have to keep some extra things in our mind while working this API. For example, if you look at this API and go into documentation of this API, as I said, read the documentation. Once you go into the documentation of this API, you will understand that with respect to this particular API, there are a lot of parameters that you need to keep in your mind. For example, if you go into the documentation, if you go to the top headlines here, you can clearly see that Q parameter inside this API is going to be used for keywords or phrases to search for. So if you change this Q parameter inside the API, it can actually allow you to implement search functionality in your web application. Page size is one of the arguments which you can use inside the API, which will simply return the number of results per page. So it's going to limit the number of results per page. On the other hand, page over there, it's going to actually allow you which page you are trying to visit. That pagination wala functionality. So the point that I'm trying to make you understand is that look at this. Q is equals to Tesla. If I simply go remove this Q is equals to Tesla and let me write cricket. Okay. So few seconds back, Q was Tesla. Now I have made Q is equals to cricket. And as soon as I make request on this, we can clearly see now the news articles are related to cricket over there. So now the news articles are related to cricket over there. Virat Kohli, so on and so forth. On the other hand, if you look at this right now, news articles, it gives me 2029, something like that. Although it gives me 100 because that is the constraint on API. But I can simply go here and I can simply say and then I can simply say page size, because documentation said there is an argument you can use inside your web application inside this API called as page size, and you can simply tell per page I want 5 articles, not more than that. Now, when I implemented page size is equals to 5, and if I try to wait a little bit, although I'm not sure why it is taking this much of time today because of some internet issues, maybe not. But as soon as I did that, do you guys observe here that now the news articles, they are 5 only? If I try to pretty print it, number 1 article, number 2 article, number 3 article, number 4, and number 5 article. Similarly, these are the first page 5 articles. What about second page 5 articles? So for that, you can again use and you can write page is equals to 5. Now, I am not creating these parameters from my own dictionary. No. But once I start dealing with this API, once I started dealing with this API, I went to its documentation. I actually found from its documentation what are the arguments that I can use. I can use country argument to actually put another filter that give me news articles from this country only. I can put another argument called as category inside API, so that I can put these values, business, entertainment, accordingly. I can put sources, I can put queue, I can put page size, page, so on and so forth. The point that I'm trying to make you understand is that whenever we deal with API, front-end developer should be quite comfortable in reading documentation. A front-end developer should be able to actually understand that when we talk about APIs have a lot of parameters depending on the design of API. In the backend, once we learn how to create APIs, over there, we will keep in our mind what are the different parameters, what are the different functionalities that we should give inside this API. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So try to understand what's happening over here. Now, if you guys tell me, don't you think if you are able to control Q parameter of this API, you will be able to implement search functionality inside your web application that you have related to news articles? Yes or no? Do you think that? Do you think that? Please make sure you like this video right now. Or do you think that if I talk about this page argument of this web page, I will be able to create that pagination, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, those buttons at the bottom that you see in a single row, right? So these parameters help you implementing such functionalities. If they are not there, then in that case, we have to write pure JavaScript to implement such functionalities. For this API, it's very straightforward. And this API, I will give you as an assignment. So what you have to do is you have to go over there on this website and sign in there. Once you sign into this website, they will provide you a free API key. If you look at this particular API, at the end, there's an API key, which is personal to my account. Similarly, once you log into this particular website, they will provide you your API key. But based on if you have logged in, then the same API key you have to implement on every single API, then only these APIs work. If you do not create the API key is like that key for this API. This is a lock, you have to open it with your API key. If you don't create that API key, you cannot access these data once you make a GET request on it. Now, this is what one of your assignments. I will launch an assignment tomorrow where I will give you instructions related to this API, what you are supposed to do and what not, okay? Which I will do later on. But in today's class, I am going to use an API called as related to GitHub, okay? So let me remember that API. So we have api.github api.github.com/users. So this is one of the API related to GitHub. We all know what GitHub is. Although unfortunately we have not taken any class on GitHub, but let me try to think of a class maybe in between of weekday. Some week we will have 1 or 2 classes on GitHub as well. Okay. Now this API simply is an API given by GitHub that we have, and based on what your username is, you can actually find all the details with respect to you. So api.github.com/user/ write your username. For example, for me, it's adfar136. So if I make a request on this particular API, after 5 seconds over here, we can clearly see it will give me data with respect to me. That what's my name, what are the bio, how many followers I have, and XYZ things. Okay. And you can clearly see that on your you can clearly see over here that we have lot of data. For example, my username is adfar136. If you look at my profile, there's a name that we can clearly see. It's Adfar Rashid. There's a bio that I have implemented on my GitHub page, which is MERN developer and educator. I have a public repos of 78. I have followers 109. I am following 2 people. And these are a lot of other APIs that I can see in front of it. Now, the point is, I want to create a web application, small web application, okay, in which there will be a particular nav bar, or even let's not have a nav bar, you can create that on your own. There will be a search input field. There will be a button that says search. Inside that particular search input field, you will type any user. If that is a valid GitHub user, it's going to give details with respect to that GitHub user. Can anyone put his or her GitHub name, username inside the chat so that we can test it out apart from Adfar136? Quickly tell me. Put it in the chat. Quickly. I want someone to put their GitHub username in the chat. Okay. So I can see over here, we have Adil Amin 11. So let's go here and let's try to write Adil Amin 11. So if I try to access this Adil Amin 1 1, I think there's some network issue that I have, but let me access my network and see if I have no throttling. Okay, so it's everything is good, but why is my network working slow? Okay, now since it has worked, we can see that as soon as I implemented another username, which is Adil Amin 1 1, I could find some of the data with respect to Adil Amin. Like name is this, location is this, bio is this, we have followers this, public repos are 22, so on and so forth. So let's create this small web application that we have. Now, tell me one thing. What are the things that we actually are implementing right now? We are creating a website with three things. Number one is index.html, right? Number two is style.css. And number three is our script.js, right? Because I'm using pure JavaScript. I'm not doing anything else. I'm using pure DOM. Pure DOM. Inside my index.html, I'm going to go and I'm going to create a structure. Now, there's always and always a proper procedure that we follow. Always, okay? Now, what is that particular procedure? Let's try to understand that. Whenever you have to design any website, always remember we first of all, in most of cases, not always, but in most of cases, like 90% cases, we create this static design. We already have a design, UI UX design somewhere created, and from that design we create this static website first, then implement dynamicalities in it. Which means over here I will first of all create the website. I will try to understand what exactly I need. Let me go here and let me create a div with a class called as container, because maybe I might implement some CSS on it. So let me implement class. After that, I'm going to give an h1, and that h1 will have some text. Let's say GitHub clone. Done. Although I'm not creating any GitHub clone, I'm just putting this headline. It's not a GitHub clone, it's simply some limited functionalities. That's it. I'm not creating GitHub clone. I'm just trying to make you understand what are the different functionalities, how we can implement them. Okay. And then I will simply create a form, because I know I have to go and I have to create a form. There's a search input field, there's a search button. Whatever username I type inside the search input field, that's what it should display me in the output. So search, and let me create a particular ID to it. Let's say search form. Done. So, and I'm not going to talk about action because we don't need action as of now. So let me create ID to be search form. And inside this, I'm going to create an input field. And that input field is simply going to be type text, simple thing. And let me even go give it an ID, which is username, because I will definitely require to read this input field using DOM, document.get element by ID. And let me put even a placeholder as well. Since I'm not using label, I'm going to use placeholder. So enter git user name. Perfectly fine. After that, I need a button, and I will create input with a type over there, and that type will be simply button, because we know, or even submit as well. I think submit will be better option because we are submitting something. So type submit, and let's say it will simply going to say find or search or anything, whatever you want to name it. Perfectly fine. And let me go live. Okay. And if I go live here, and let me try to copy this, and let me try to open it here, and let's try to open this website. So we have created the first static design. As I said, start with static design. Do not think about dynamicality first. Create the static design. Then, depending on what that static design is, then think about what you are supposed to do. Think about after that what JavaScript you are going to implement. Now, see, we already have an API, and this is the API that we have. According to this API, you guys tell me in the chat which parameter is dynamic in the nature in this API. Do you think that this parameter that I have highlighted, it is dynamic in nature? Because the same parameter is going to be Adfar136, Adil Amin, it's going to be Sayed0711, it's going to be Anil9450, so on and so forth, depending on the user that GitHub holds, right? Which means I will try to make a request on this API, but I have to know, I have to understand that this particular parameter which I have highlighted, somehow I have to write my code in a way so that this particular parameter is going to be mapped with this input field. Yes or no? Yes or no? So we need to understand that this input field that I have, it has to be mapped with this particular username that we have. And let's try to do that as well. So I will go here inside my script and we will try to write our pure code, pure JavaScript code that we have. And I know which parameter inside this API is a dynamic parameter. Why? Because I clearly know that it is username which I have to map with the input field. Now, when will that input field be called? When I click on that search. I mean, when will be that API be fetched? When I click on this particular button. And let's do that later on. And let's suppose whenever I click on this, the function I'm going to call is function. I am going to call fetch user info, let's suppose, because I'm interested in user info. Like this, like this, like this. Now see and try to understand what I'm trying to say here. I have a function called as fetch user info. A simple function, a straightforward function. Okay. What is this function supposed to do? It's simply supposed to fetch an API. And even let me do that. Let me simply say fetch and let me try to paste my API here. Okay. Although let's keep this static right now, which is Adil Amin Ali1. And I know once I implement fetch on it, what is it going to return, guys? Whenever you fetch any API or whenever you perform such operation and get request on an API, it returns a promise. Very good. We know we have to implement a proper promise chaining. Dot then twice because we have to use dot JSON middleware, dot JSON parsing as well. So it's going to return promise. Very good. Over here, we will get simply response. And once I get a response from it, I have to parse it, which means I have to tell it to return what response dot JSON. And once I do that, it will return another promise. This all things we have discussed in our previous class. Then over here, once I implement another dot then. Now in this dot then, we also know it's going to receive a callback function. And over here, it's going to receive an argument. But don't you think that argument is actually what this entire object is? So let me try to zoom it out over here. So this whole object that we have, this is what we are going to get inside this particular argument that we have, yes or no? Because we have implemented promise chaining. We have done that, right? So this whole object that we are going to get it inside this argument. Am I correct? Am I correct? Very good. Over here, I will simply go put user. Now, when I try to, let's even try to console this. So let me simply go say console.log user. And what I will do is I will simply go here. Although I am not going to implement my functionality, by that I mean on-click event directly. Here I'm going to use add event listener. But as of now, since I want just to see whether I'm getting the data or not, I will use a event called as on submit, and I am going to tell it to call a function called as fetch user info. So whenever I'm going to submit this form, please call a function called as fetch user info. And let me go to my website that we have. And let's try to go on the inspector and let me go on the console and let me click on search. Now, when I click on search, something is happening. Okay. When I click on search, something is happening. What is that? Quickly revise the concept of forms. That whenever you submit any form, what is the default behavior? What is the default behavior, guys? Tell me quickly. Whenever you submit any form, what is the default behavior? The default behavior of form is very good. It is going to refresh the entire page. So what are we supposed to do? We are, first of all, I am not sure whether it has fetched the API or not. That's not the concern, because there's some other thing that came first, which is it is going to refresh the entire page. That is why the first thing that I am going to do over is I am going to prevent the default nature. Very good, Basu. So I'm going to simply say e dot event dot prevent default like this. So once I do event dot prevent default, and let's go now to the website that we have and let's try to see. So if I click on search, there is some still not working. Don't you see it's still actually refreshing the entire page? Yes or no? Of course it is. It is refreshing the entire page. So let's pass this argument here, although it takes it by default, but somehow it's not. So let me pass event over here. So let's see now if it works properly or not. If it does not, then we will use event listener. Okay, add event listener. So let's try to refresh our page. No, it's not. Okay, so there might be some issue. That's why I do not always, in most of cases, I do not add event like this. What I will do is I know there's an ID form. I will go inside script and I will simply tell it on my document. Although it can work there as well, there's nothing wrong with that. We can make that as work, that work as well, but I don't think we have enough time. That's why I will add an event listener. Now what is the event listener that I'm going to add? First of all, on my document, please get an element by id. And what is that id? That is search form, right? On this, please add an event listener. Now what is the event listener? The event listener is simply submit. Second thing is, on this, it's going to call a function with an argument called as event e. And over here, the first thing that it's going to prevent the default nature. So let me remove this here, and let me remove this here as well. Let's keep this purely for function. Although yes, I have not actually. Very good, Ashu. Very good. Very good. Very good. I have not. Very good. That's the most important thing that I have missed. So I have script with src, and let's try to implement src. Sorry, what's happening? So src is equals to what? Src is equals to dot slash script.js. Perfect. So now I think I have added this event as well. That's why I said it's going to work over here as well. But I think this is always a better way to implement our things. Keep your HTML as simple as you can. Okay, keep it very pure. Now, if I go to my web application, if I click on search, we can clearly see. Hopefully, let's try to refresh our page. Click on search. Why is this not working? Why is it not consoling? So fetch user info. Okay, I'm not calling my fetch user info. I am not calling my fetch user info. And over here, I'm going to call the function which is called fetch user info like this. Done. Now let's go here and let's try to search. So if I search it, let's see console happening or not. Why is this not happening? Have I linked it correctly? So src is equal dot script.js. Yes. And let me do one thing just to confirm. I'm going to go and say console.log my adfer. Okay. And let's go here and let's see. Adfer is getting printed. So if I click on search, it works. Perfect. It works, right? So we have got our data. Perfectly fine. Absolutely. We were not linking our JavaScript with our HTML, but I think it has now worked, right? Very good. Now, what are we interested in? That's one of the very important points now. We are interested in not just displaying data, but there's also some other functionality that we have to do. As of now, if you look closely, you can clearly see right now the user is static. By static, I mean the user will always be Adil Amin 11. If I change it, make it Adfar 136, yes, it will be giving display data related to Adfar 136, but it will always be Adfar 136. But don't you think I have to actually make this a dynamic parameter? Of course, yes. Now, do we have any kind of syntax inside our JavaScript where we can make a parameter dynamic within a string? Do we have any kind of concept inside JavaScript where we can add JavaScript variables in a string? Do we have that kind of syntax? Of course, we have. And what is that syntax? That's called template literals. So instead of making it wrapped into these, I'm going to wrap them inside a template literal. And then I am going to make this adfer sheet a proper variable. And let me name that variable at username or whatever you want to call it. The same username I'm going to pass here as an argument. Simple. So now, whenever I will call this fetch user info, whatever value I will pass here as an argument, that's what will be going to that API, and it will give me data with respect to that. But guys, tell me one thing. Tell me quickly one thing. What is the argument that I have to pass here? What is the argument that I have to pass here? The argument that I have to pass here is simply the value that I am going to type inside the input field. Yes or no? That's why I will simply create a variable. Let's suppose, let me name that let username is equals to, I will simply tell it on my document, please get an element by ID. And that element is nothing but actually ID username. So let me go here and let me put this username. And from this, please give me its value. And don't you think now I can simply go and tell its username like this? So let username is equals document.get element by ID, and I am going to put value of it, and that same value, now whatever I am typing inside the input field is being transferred as an argument to my fetch user info. That's why now if I go to my website and if I write here, let's suppose adfer136, click on search, it should give me data with respect to that particular adfer136 here. Although it's taking some time, unfortunately, because it's not even giving me an error here. If it would have been working immediately, it would have given me error. But it's taking some time. I think there are some issues with my Google Chrome today. It's taking a little bit of time. My internet might be slow, or there might be some issues. And we can clearly see now our user. Similar to this, I can simply go here. I can write some other username. There was some username that we saw in our chat. Let's quickly see that. Ankit604. So Ankit604. And if I go here, click on search again, as soon as I click on search, we can get our data. So now this is how we will implement our search functionality. In most of the cases, the search functionality will be implemented using a parameter of that API. Like here, we have completely implemented this particular parameter with help of which we have implemented search functionality. Now, you guys tell me. Let's suppose this is the API that I am trying to make a request on. In order to implement search functionality here, do you guys think that this is what this q parameter, this cricket over here, this is what I will make? I will connect as a variable there, a dynamic variable there. Yes or no? Yes or no? Do you think that if I have to implement search functionality here, I will make this particular Q argument as the way of implementing search functionality? Of course, yes. Now look at this. This is what I want. Okay. I want to implement pagination. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. Don't you think if I am making a request on this particular API, pagination is a very straightforward task? Like I have page size argument, I have page argument, which means it's a very straightforward argument. It's a straightforward functionality. I can implement it. But if you look at this API, do we have any such arguments? Do we have page size? Do we have page? Of course not. We don't have that. So implementing pagination here is a task. That's what is very interesting about today's project. Implementing pagination here is very straightforward task. We have arguments. We will directly link it with pagination. It's done. But if you look at this API, here it's a task. But even before we implement that, there's still one issue here that I actually remember right now, which is what if this input field is empty and yet somehow I click on search? If this is empty and I click on search button over there, what have I given? I have given empty string as an argument. And when I have given empty string as an argument, do you think my promise will return a data? Of course not. It is going to give me not found. What am I going to do in this case? In this case, I will actually pass a condition. I will tell it, do not fetch this user info directly, but implement if there is a username. If there is a username, then only go there and implement fetch user info. Simple as that. Or make it required. Exactly, Sayed. We can do that as well. Make it required. That's one of the same things. But if we talk about JavaScript, what am I doing? If username is true. Now, when will this username be true? When I type something in it. If I type something in it, then only fetch this user info. Unless and until my username is not true, do not fetch. Simple, straightforward thing. I hope this makes sense. This is a very simple, straightforward implementation that I have done. Now, let's come back to the functionality. I just do not want to console things. No, I do not want to do that. So, what am I going to do then? I am going to tell it, once you fetch an API, display the data. For example, if you go to this website here, I want it to display name on the web page. I want it to display location on the web page. I want it to display bio on the web page. Followers, maybe following. These are the things that I want it to display. So let's do that. So let me go here. Let me go inside index and let me create a div with a class or ID, let's suppose, that says overview. And inside this overview, in its inner HTML, I am going to put my content using JavaScript. So over here, I will simply tell it, please and please, once you resolve the second promise over there, go on my document. And on that, please get an element by ID. And what is the ID that I have created? Overview, I guess, right? हाँ, वही मैंने किया था. And for this, please make it in HTML is equals. And over here, I'm going to use template literals. Why? Because directly I'm going to put my tags. Definitely yes, Adil. You can. And I know a lot of my students who have gotten job if they knew only these four things, and that too with good packages. So of course, if you want to become a front end developer, why would you go to back end, right? Although there's some funda that if you want to become a front end developer, learn front end properly, but have an idea of back end. If you want to become a back end developer, learn back end development properly and have an idea of front end. So that's what you should do. You should learn front end completely, but have an idea of back end as well. Okay. Now, once this promise is resolved, at that point of time, I simply wanted inside this create a div, let's suppose. Okay. And in that div, I would simply wanted to create. Now, do we have what is the data that I'm interested in? I have login ID. Okay, so there is one of the options that we have called as avatar URL. If I try to copy this particular HTTPS and let me try to paste it here, let's see what it gives me. It gives me user profile picture. So it means I can put a profile picture from this API as well. So let me do that. I am going to put an img tag like this. For this, I'm going to put src. Now, what is src going to be equals to? This src is going to be equals to my dollar, then curly brace like this, user dot, what was it? It was, if I remember, it was avatar URL. So let me go here quickly. Let me write avatar URL. Quickly done. Moving forward, and maybe I will have alt as well. So alternate text is profile pic, or even I will implement some width and height as well, because it's going to have some unusual height and width. So let me give width over there for this image is equals to 150 pixel, like that, or 200 pixel or whatever. And then it's going to have a height over there is equals to what? Is equals to 150 pixel. Done. Perfectly fine. Moving forward, what else? I am going to go here, create an h2 tag in which it's simply going to display some name of it. So let me go, let me create user name. And what is this username? This username is exactly nothing but user dot name, right? That's what the key name was. Similarly, control C, control V, control V, control V. Let me put multiple here. So I'm going to go say user bio, and over it was user dot bio. These are the information that I want to display from that API that we fetched. Similarly, let me go, let me say user followers, and let me go here and let me write user dot followers. How many are following this particular user following, like this, and let me pass user dot following, right? Similarly, I can pass some other as well, but let's see what they are as of now, because I don't remember all the keys. So let's test it out. Refresh. Let me pass adfer 136. Let me search it. As soon as I search it, it should call that function and it should display data on my web page below this, below this particular form. Although it is taking some time, I'm not sure why. There are some issues with my browser, and I will try to rectify them later on. But if I try to zoom it out, you can see एक हीरो आपके सामने आ गया, right? Where user name is Adfar Rashid, user bio is Marin developer, user followers are 109, user following is 2, username is something like that, and we were able to fetch a particular data from this particular endpoint. Similarly, give me some other name. I have Ankit 604, right? And let me try to search it. So if I search it, this is the profile picture, and these are the data that we have. Although, Ankit, please update your bio. And what else? So we have implemented the basic functionality. So any username I will put there, it's going to give me a proper user data with respect to that. Let's try to write Saeed over here as well. So Saeed 0711. And let me write search. And as soon as I do that, this is what data I got. So it means I am able to properly fetch the data from this. But what is the second thing that we want to implement here? Let's try to understand that. The second thing that I want to implement is what? What is the second thing that we want to implement? Pagination. Dynamic code, please put your ID. I'm going to search it. We want to implement pagination. But tell me, guys, one thing. Tell me simple one thing. What do we mean by pagination? I need an answer in the chat. Give me, what do we mean by pagination? What do we mean by pagination? I need a specific answer from you in the chat. I'm writing Abzal 007. It is taking a little bit of time. I'm not sure why, but I think we got the data. Please update your user bio. Tell me quickly, what do we mean by pagination? My last search that I'm going to do. What do we mean by very good? Going to page 1234. For example, if I go here, if I go to Amazon.in, we can go to mobile phones here. Let me go some, let's say over here, somewhere. If I try to see, there are pagination, right? So over here somewhere, if I go read more or whatever, wherever, let me try to find out some of the mobiles. And in mobile phones, if I drag down, we can see all results over here at the bottom. Now we can see this pagination, right? This pagination 1 2 3 in between dot 400 previous next. This is what pagination means. But don't you think that pagination will be implemented on when we have more, when we have lot of elements, same type of elements? Yes or no? Same type of elements, then pagination will be implemented. Like I have lot of mobile phones, that's why pagination is implemented. But according to this website, do we have anything on which we can implement pagination? That's the most important thing. First of all, why would we unnecessarily implement pagination? Unless and until there's nothing such kind of data we have on this web page, why will we implement pagination? There's no point. That's why we are going to find such kind of data first of all. Look at this. If you go here on this API's data point, you can see, let me write Adfar136 because I have a lot of data in my GitHub. I have been working on GitHub and almost for last 5-6 years. So if I try to search this particular user, I don't know why it's taking a little bit of time today. I'm connected with which network? Adfar's iPhone. Perfectly fine. Okay. See, I have, as of now, if you look at this particular data point related to me, do you think that there is one of the options that we have called as public repos? The repositories that are on my profile, which are 78. Now, if they are 78, it means I can implement pagination on them, right? Let's go here on this page and I will simply say user repos. Let me create one the key called as user repos. And what was the key name for this? It was public repos. So let me write public repos like this. Similarly, I can put some other things as well, but let's do that later on. As of now, if I go to my web page, we can see that public repos are 78. Can we put pagination on it? Not on this key that it's a number. So how we cannot put pagination on it? But if you go over here on one of the keys called as repos URL, if you go onto this particular key called as repos URL or the same API, but then if you add after the slash repos and click enter, you can clearly see in few seconds there all the public repositories that I have, this user have, which is Adfar136. I am going to get all the repositories. You can see that. So this is my first repository. This is my second repository, so on and so forth, moving forward. Second repository. Then we have third repository, fourth repository. All the 78 repositories it's going to display. So somehow, if I am able to display these public repositories on my web page, since there are 78, would we want all 78 repositories on a single page? No. We would want 5 repositories on single page, 10 repositories on single page. And then once we want only 5 or 10, pagination logic comes into picture. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say? Yes or no? Does it make sense? We cannot put pagination on this because there's nothing that we have here on which pagination can be implemented. Unless or until there's such kind of data on which pagination can be implemented, we can. But right now, if I'm searching directly at Farshid here, there's nothing that we have that we can paginate on. But if I bring my public repos here, these 78 repos here, we can actually implement our pagination. So let's do that. How can we implement? How can we get public repos? Simply by making a request on this API by adding repos at the end, nothing else. So let me go here. Let me define another function. So I am going to define a function, and that function is going to be fetch user repos like this. I'm just naming them whatever you want to name it. And I am simply going to give it, let's say, username as an argument, right? Because username is dynamic in nature. And over here, I'm simply going to tell it fetch. Please fetch. What are you going to fetch? Please fetch over there. What exactly this repository that I have. So I'm going to go here and fetch this API. Done. Now, username is properly what we call as, a proper dynamic value here, right? Now, over here, I'm going to simply say slash. Slash what? Slash repos. If I go here and if I try to see, this is the API on which I am making a request and I am getting a data like this. The same thing that I did here. So when I make a request on this, I am able to get data. Even if I remember correctly, I have read the documentation of this API. So please go and read the documentation. Over here, we can also implement that per page and all that logic. So let me try to see if it works. If it does not, then we will see other solution to it. So per page, I simply want, let's say, 5. Okay, per page I want 5. Does it work? Let's see. So there is per page. Over here for this API, it was page size. So it depends on the API's documentation. So we have per page is equals to 5. And there's one other argument. Now I have implement per page. It works. You can see only 5 arguments now. Perfectly, it works. And we have one another argument called as page. So I can implement and finally I have another argument called as page, not age. So page is equals, let's put 4. Give me 4th page, which means 15 to 20. Give me those proposals, and that works as well. So we have such arguments. So let me go here. Let me pass these two as well. So I will say note of interrogation, and I will simply say per page. Per page, I want, let's suppose 5. Okay, per page, I want 5. Then pagination. Let's suppose there's a pagination that I have already implemented. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all those buttons. Don't you think per page is a static value? But if I talk about this page argument, this is dynamic value. Because now when I click on one button, it should display me first 5. When I click on 2 button, it should display me second 5. When I click on 3 button, it should display me third 5. So this per page is always 5. It's static in nature. We have set it to 5. It will always be 5. But if I talk about this page parameter of this API, don't you think it is dynamic in nature? Of course, it's dynamic in nature. That's why I will simply go and I will make this a dynamic value as well. Let me write page. And over here, I'm going to pass an argument called as page. Simple thing. Now I know after that, since it's a promise, I'm going to go and implement dot then. Where I'm going to get over here response like this. And to that response, I will tell it to implement response.json, parse it like this. And there's some issue. Okay, I have missed S. And then on this, I know it's going to return a promise. And over here, I know I will get single user details out of it. Although I'm not going to get user in this case because it's a repos. So let me call repos. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Very good. So when I try to fetch this API, I get repos. Even let's try to console this. So console.log repos. Okay. And let's try to see what we get in the output. And let me call this directly this function because I am not calling it anywhere as of now. So let me call this for other 136 and let me display page number 1. So these are the 2 arguments, right? And statically I am passing. Later them I will pass them in a dynamic way. Let's go on the document and let's go in the inspect and let's go in the console. So if I go in the console, we can get an array of 5 articles. 5 repositories. If I try to open it, we can clearly see at the 0th index, we have, archive URL, we have downloads URL, how many folks we have done, full name of this API. We have a lot of things. We have HTML URL on which if you click, it will take you to the GitHub URL that we have. We have ID of this, we have name of this, we have node ID. We have XYZ things over here, right? Now we can display them. Similarly for second, third, fourth, fifth. If I go here, if I put second argument, second page number, there it's going to give me those second 5 repositories here. Of course, that's what it gives me. Wonderfully, perfectly fine. Now let's display them on our web page. Shall we? Let's display them. So let's go here. Of course, I do not have to call it here, but I will first of all remove this and I will try to tell it, please do one thing. At this point of time, it's an array. Now tell me one thing. Very good. There comes one logic into picture. And I need few answers from you. If you look at the output console, it's an array. When it's an array, I want to display all these repositories one by one. Like since there are 5 repositories, so I will put them in card 1, card 2, card 3, card 4, card 5, and then below pagination. But will I be able to, since it's an array, will I be able to fetch all of these array items directly, or I have to use any predefined method, which is a method that returns another array and maps it properly with whatever I want it to be mapped with. What's that method in arrays? Very good. Always remember, and in most of the cases, trust me, when we fetch our data from an API, even if you look at this API, if you look at this, we are interested in articles. And if you look at it, it's an array of articles. In most of the cases, whenever we fetch our data, if it's a large set of data, it will be an array. And if it is an array, since we, and then we have to deal with it using methods. In most of the cases, we use map. So let me go here and let's try to remove this, and let's try to remove this as well. And what I will do is I will simply go and create a, let's say, variable. So let me say let repo list is equals to, and on this I will tell it on my repo, since it's an array, on this please map. Now when I implement map, there are 2 arguments that it receives, item and index. Let's suppose I'm not interested in item, I'm going to pass only repo here. So like this, like this, like this. Now tell me, if I console.log my repo, what is it going to do? So let me call my fetch user repos with an argument called as adfer136, and then comma, I'm going to pass page number 1. Now tell me what this repo is. Don't you think the 5 repositories it gave me inside the array? Now this repo is an individual repo itself, like 111. It's not like the array it's going to return. It's going to return the items individually now, and it's going to console them. That's why if I go here, if I go to my document, we can now see I'm getting the individual repositories one by one, right? Because that's what the first argument of map refers to. Now I saw and I understood what it does. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go here and create a div. And let's go here and let me even give it a class, because maybe we might design it later on if हमारे पास time मिला तो. Div with a class repo, and over here I'm going to simply tell it since it's a repository, so I'm going to pass link of it, I'm going to pass description of it, I'm going to pass name of it. These are the few things that I'm going to pass. Okay, so let me create div of it, another div for my description, where I will simply use an anchor tag. Okay, so let me pass anchor tag like this, and over here I'm going to tell it please use href, and inside href I'm going to pass what, I'm going to pass dollar, and then over there what was the name of it, it was html url if I'm not wrong. So repo.html url like this, and over here I'm going to pass, what am I going to pass, I'm going to pass repo dot now repo dot name. Perfectly fine. Okay, and of course we have to understand one small thing here, which is that I cannot use this unless or until it's a template literal, right? I cannot use such kind of syntax, not here or not here. So let's make it template literal. That's what I forgot, right? So that's why I'm going to remove this curly brace here, and I'm going to tell it directly return it as a template literal. So let me put template literals like this, and let me, why is it closing? It is closing here, right? Perfectly fine. So I am telling it that once you map it, directly return a div with template literal with this data. That's what I'm doing. Simple as that. And finally, after that, I'm going to go and I'm going to put a p tag. And in that p tag, I'm going to simply go and put my description, which is $repo.description. Done. Do we need anything else? As of now, let's keep only these 2 things. I'm not going to put anything else here. Now let's see what it does. There might be some complexities that we face, because when we implement map and we directly tell it to return in HTML, there are some issues that we face. So please pay close attention, and I am going to ask you some solutions. So let me go. Of course, when do we want to see those repositories? When we try to search a particular user. So let me go here and let me try to tell it fetch user repos with a username and let me go here and let me pass as of from only one by default. Let's pass one. Later on, I will make it dynamic. I will make it 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on which button we click. But as of now, by default, it's going to be page number one. So I'm telling it, do one thing there. When this method is called at that point of time, please go and please call this function, which is fetch user repo. And over there, once you resolve the promise, create an array. And that array will be returning a proper div. And that div will be class repo and all those things. Now, of course, we have to display this somewhere. We have to display it somewhere. So let me go here and let me create a div with repos. So let me go div hash repos here. This one small issue that I can think of. Maybe if that happens, then I will tell you what that is. So I will tell it on my document. Please get an element by ID, and that ID is repos. For this, please make an inner HTML. Now, what is that inner HTML? Inner HTML is nothing but my repo list. But there's a small mistake that I'm doing. Small mistake. Try to observe it. What is small mistake I am doing when I write is equals to repo list? Try to understand that. But let me see if it works. There is a small mistake. I'm pretty much sure about it. I am doing a small mistake here. Small, very minute. You know what is this called? Very minute mistake. Very minute, but it's a very huge mistake as well if you look at it. But think about it. Observe the code and see what I am doing over here and what this means. Let me give you a hint. Let me give you a hint. What is this repo list? Is this an array or is this something else? Quickly tell me. When we talk about this repo list, what is it? It's an array or anything else? Very good. Very good. It's an array because we know map returns an array, right? We know that. But you guys tell me one thing here. Earlier, when I resolved this promise, this repos was also an array. But at that point of time, it was array of objects. This repos was array of objects. Objects, all of those repos that we have. Then I simply converted the repos array into an array of divs. Don't you think right now the repo list array that I have, even let me try to console it. So console.log my repo list. And let's see what it prints. Try to see what I'm doing. So let me go here and let's try to understand it. So I will say adfer136 and let me try to search it. Although it takes some time, my Google Chrome is very slow today, but let's give it some time. Very good. Do you see right now, when I actually search it adfer136, at the bottom, we can see adfer null, adfer this, adfer null, adfer this, adfer every. I am able to get my repositories. These are the repositories that I actually created very initially. When मैं जब सीख रहा था ना GitHub, तब की ये repositories हैं. I should delete them, but let's see. Still, I am able to get my repositories. But you can see this commas here. What are these commas? What are these commas? What are these commas? And you can clearly see that the repo list array that I have, it contains divs. So this is my first div. This is my second div. This is my third div. Because that's what I am telling it. I am telling it, create a repo list of these divs. And that's what it is doing wonderfully. But the issue still is it's an array. Like I am fetching an array. And do you think that is the better way of displaying our content of array? No. If it would have been a string, because we know we put string as inner HTML of any element. Yes or no? When we target any element on DOM, document.get element by ID, and we write its inner HTML, don't we put string as inner HTML? Don't we put string as inner HTML? Yes or no? Give me a quick answer. But as of now, I am putting inner HTML, which is an array. So why would we do that? And it's never suggested to put directly your array as an inner HTML. So tell me which method will actually allow me to convert over there this array into string. Do we have any method on arrays with the help of which we can convert that particular array into string, so that this particular repo list will not be an array, but it will be a single string. And that string will be containing all the divs, div, depending on what these repos are. No, taxi content is a method of DOM. What is the method of my JavaScript with the help of which we can convert our arrays into a string with a separator that we have? we have a method called as join, dot join. Please join them. Please join them with an empty string that we have. So we have a join as the method. I think I have already taught this as well. And now if I go here and if I write Athar136, click on search, after some time we can clearly see now. Do you see enough comma anywhere? Do you see comma anywhere? No, I don't see comma anywhere. So now, because now if you look at this, repo list is now directly a string. It's no longer an array. Earlier it was array, now it's a string. So you have to keep these things in your mind. Do you think this was one of the very good things that we learned? Yes or no? That while fetching data, we have to keep things in our mind. It's not directly, we are getting the result and that's it. No. There was a comma that we were able to see in our output. And why would we want to display comma in the output? We would not. That's why I converted this array into a string. Right? That's why we have to do that. And there's a join method that we do. But if you look at this, even let me do one thing. Let me try to display page number 3 instead of 2, or let me display page number 5, because I know I have 78 repositories. So my page number 5 should properly work. So let me refresh this and let me go out from 136 and let me search it. So if I search it, we have Firebase project, form PHP, form MPHP, FS2K8, MERN, FS3K4, so on and so forth. But if we everywhere see the description of every single repository that I have had, it's null because I have never added description on any GitHub repository. Now I somehow want to write a proper logic here, with help of which I will tell it if there's a description, display description. If there's no description, simply display a string saying no description available. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. If there's a description, display a description. If there's no description, don't display a description. That's what I'm trying to do here. Right? Am I clear? Does it make any sense? And how do we do that? Do we have any operator with help of which we can tell it display this or display this? If this is true, display this. If this is not, don't display it. As of now, I can simply implement that with help of a ternary operator, very good, with help of an and operator, or with help of an or operator. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put or, which means if repo.description is true, then display it. Otherwise, simply say no description available. What is the spelling of available? Available, like this. And let's see how it works now. So if I go right now to my output, we can see now it says no description available, no description available, no description available, right? No description available. So it says that. Although, there's a small issue that we are facing. Can anyone tell me what's the issue right now? I displayed, I was able to display no description available here. Everything is fine, everything is good, but still there's an issue. The issue is right now there's no user, and yet it's remembering the previous things. And why would we want that? If I refresh my page, of course, you can clearly see as of now it is displaying such things. Why would we want that? We would not want that. That's why I'm going to remove this, because I am calling my function directly in the global scope. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? In the global scope. That's why I am seeing, even without searching a particular user, I am able to see those repositories. So now I will go here and I will remove this. Now there's no repositories. So unless and until I do not search for a particular user, I won't be able to get any description. If I simply click on this, now once I click on this, we can clearly see it takes me to GitHub in a few seconds, but on the same tab. Now, if it is on the same tab, I don't want to do that. I can put target attribute to this. So let me go here and let me put target. And target is equals to -blank. So that whenever anyone clicks on this, it will open the tab inside a new tab, right? So let's go here and let me go. And you can clearly see it opens up that particular repository properly. So let me search the user and let's go here and click on this. And still it opens up in the same. Why is that? So let's refresh the page. Athar136, search, done. And let's open this. It's opening it in the same page. Why is that? Am I missing anything? I am saying target is equals to blank. Then what is the issue? What is the issue? What is the issue? It's not able to open it inside the another one. Do we have any other value or blank? हम blank ही लिखते हैं ना? हाँ, शायद blank ही है. Yes, it's blank. Maybe there might be some other issue. So let's refresh the page and let me try to write the user Athar136, search it. So let's wait a second. Come on, work now. So I'm going to search it, done, and let me click on Firebase. Why is it opening it in the same tab? It should not do that. It should not behave like this because I have implemented target is equals to blank, right? Or am I missing anything here? Anchor tag target to be blank, repo.name, everything is good. Then what is the issue? Remove, no, I think this is there. No, a hyphen blank is there, Anil. I'm pretty much sure. I'm positive about that. It's hyphen blank. I'm 100% sure. Let's see if this does not work. In that case, there's always a solution to it, which is inspect. So let me go here, inspect, and inside the inspect, I will go to this repo that I have, open this div, and for this target is blank. It opens up. So target is blank. Perfect. It is getting attached to it. So target is blank, but then unfortunately over it's not working. So what is the issue? We are going to container. Let me open repositories that I have. Let's search this. So if I search it, there should be a user. So target is blank and somehow it's not affecting. It's not effective there. Adfer136, search it. And over here, if I open repos, if I open a single repo, this. Okay, so basically somehow you can clearly see target blank is not becoming as an attribute, but it's added as href. So I think I have missed something. I have added this target blank inside href, right? So that's why always inspect is your the tool. So if you go check the inspect, it is your tool to resolve and debug your code. Now if we go here and try to fetch a user, click on search and try to see any this one. If I click on it, it's opened in the new tab. So it's properly working now. I hope it makes sense. Now there's the issue. What's the issue? The issue that we have now is that I am fetching a particular repo. And if you look at it, there are fifth repo that I fifth page, and there are 78. You guys do the mathematics. I have total 78 repositories. Per page, there are 5 items. How many buttons should be there? How many pagination buttons should be there? How many buttons should be there? 78 total repositories. I want to implement pagination. How many buttons should be there? 78 divided by 5, which is 15 point something, which is 16 page, right? So 16 buttons should be there, and that's what we have to do. Al Ratha says, what about today's project? That's what we are creating. We are learning few of the very important functionalities. Search functionality is done, and dynamicality is little bit done, and now we are going to implement pagination, and then we are going to implement local storage, which means adding favorite and removing favorite. These are few functionalities that we are going to do today. So that's what we are doing right now. So 16 pages we have to create, right? And that's what we are going to do after the break. So we will take a 10 minutes break now. And once that break is done, remember, we are going to implement pagination. And trust me, pagination is one of the most important functionalities that might be given to you in your interviews. Portfolio we are not creating. That was not the project that I had in my mind, portfolio project, as of now. Like if we want portfolio project, not Saturday, Sunday, but in between we can have some class in weekdays. If all of the students are available on that particular weekday, we can create portfolio project in that day. But today it was related to JavaScript API fetching, because that's what we learned in yesterday's class, right? So we wanted to implement such functionalities. So what I'm trying to tell you right now is then now I am going to implement one of the most important functionalities in our JavaScript, that's called pagination, especially because you see pagination in almost in every website when you deal with a lot of data. You cannot display a lot of data in one go. So do not leave the class, even stay here in the break. After the break, we are going to implement pagination, and then we are going to implement local storage, adding favorites and removing favorites. By that I mean I want to add my favorite repository to the local storage. How can I do that? Then I want to remove it. How can I do that? So that's what we are going to do after the break. So do not leave the class, stay here even in the break as well, and let's connect after exactly when this time ends. Okay, see you guys. Bye everyone, and please make sure you like this video and share it with your friends and family. Please do that. Thank you so much. See you. Hey guys, hi everyone, welcome back. I hope I'm audible as well as visible. Am I? Hello guys, hi everyone. So, hi everyone, hi guys. I hope I'm audible. Am I? See, I understand one thing that you know a lot of students here they want a session on portfolio as well, right? But most of the portfolio when we try to create it is around HTML and CSS. Like there is JavaScript, but very minimally used. Depends on the portfolio that we create. But still, what we will do is we will create a poll in our WhatsApp group. In our batch, we will create a poll. And depending on how many students want portfolio session, like they want to create a portfolio, I'm not sure whether I will be available this weekdays. I will try my best because I have my job as well. What we will do is during these weekdays, someday we are going to create a portfolio. We are going to have a session on YouTube where we will create a portfolio. Will that work? Does it work for everyone? But depending on the pool, like if pool says 50 students, 50 students have to be there. So if you want a portfolio session, we can do that as well. Portfolio banana kaun si badi baat hai. There are hundreds of YouTube videos that you can already see. I will try my best to that I will be the one who will take the portfolio session. If not, then I will get one of the good educators, maybe that I know. I'm going to pay him as well, and we can have a portfolio session. ठीक है ना? But these are small things. I don't think that's an issue. So let's not focus there and let's come back and let's focus here. See, now what do I want? I want to create a pagination because I have a requirement of that right now. Let's come back to the discussion that we were having and let's understand pagination कि कितने तरीके से implement किया जा सकता है. So let me create a div with the ID called as pagination. With the ID as pagination. And let's create it in a very simple way. I will show you one of the most easiest way. Then we will increase the level of pagination. I will go here and we will create a function. So function. And let me name this set pagination. Set pagination. As of now, I know when we talk about pagination, it's going to receive some of the arguments, but I'm not going to pass because I'm going to keep it as simple as it is. I know the total repositories that I have, they are actually depending on the data that I'm going to fetch. For example, at first, he has 78 total repositories. On the same time, if I talk about Ankit, he had only 12. Similarly, so on and so forth. But right now, let's set up a static design. So I will go and I will pass one of the arguments here called as total repos. So let me define an argument called as total repos. And over here, I will statically set it total repos is equals to 78, which is in my case. Very good. After that, let me go access that pagination container from our HTML, which I created. So let me say document dot get element by ID, and let's simply implement the ID as pagination, right? So I have gotten that div here. Done. Perfectly fine. Very good. After that, we will create our pagination. First of all, how many items do we have per page? It's 5. It is statically set. So let me go here and let me simply tell it, please create buttons. So let me simply tell it, please create buttons. But how many buttons we want to create? That's something that we have to understand. Plus, and then according to this, if you look at it, since per page it's 5 items, so we can simply say my let btn count over there is equals to, I'm going to simply say the total repos that I have divided by 5. Yes or no? Total repos divided by 5. Now it is 78. When we say total repos divided by 5, what is it going to be? Total repos divided by 5. Can you guys tell me what will be the btn count in this case? What is btn count in this case? What is btn count in this case? 15. Very good, Said. It's not going to be 16. It's going to be 15 because it's an integer division right now. So 78 divided by 5 is something maybe, but what do we want? We want even if it is going to be 15 point something, right? 15 point something, right? 15.6, I would say, but we want 16. Do we have any mathematical object function with help of which if it is 15.6 or 15.1 or 15.2, I want it to be make it 16? there is a function which we use called as math.seal. So math.seal is a function. If the argument passed to it is 1.2, it means seal it, which means 1.2 will become 2. 1.7 will become 2. 1.01 will even become 2. On the other hand, if we want it floor, then we have math.floor, which means 1.9 will become 1. So math.floor. So math.seal. Now I know that it is going to return 16 in this case, since the total repos is 78. After that, I want to create buttons. But how many buttons do we want to create? 16 buttons. And I cannot create buttons one by one, one by one, one by one. I will not do that. That's why I'm going to use a for loop. A proper imperative way as of now. I will show you another way, but simple way. So let I is equals to 1. Then I should be less or equals to my btn count. Then I plus plus, meaning it will execute this loop 16 times. In that case, I will simply tell it create a page button that I have is equals to on my document. What is the method with help of which we create an element? It's called a create element. And what is the element we wanted to create? It's btn button, right? I'm running a loop, which means it's going to create 16 page buttons here. And on every page button, what is the content that we want? The first button should display 1. Second button should have a content on it 2. Third, 4, 5, 6, similarly, and so on and so forth. So I will simply tell it, on my page button, please put its text content is equals to what? I. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but I. Because I will vary from 1 to 16. Right? And then over here, I am simply going to tell it. And then tell me one thing here. Tell me one thing. If I execute it right now, do you think buttons will be displayed in my web page? Do you think buttons will be displayed in my web page? Let's suppose I have called this function somewhere, wherever it's supposed to be called. Do you think buttons will be displayed in the web page? Of course not. Buttons won't be displayed, right? Because we know that whenever we create any element, unless and until you do not append it inside any node or inside any element, it's not going to be displayed. So we have to append it in a proper way. That's why I will simply tell it in my pagination, please append. What are you going to please append? Append them as child. And what are you going to append? Page btn. Wonderful, perfect. So now these 16 buttons will be created. Now you guys tell me. I have a function which will create 16 buttons here. Properly 16 buttons because total repo is 78. Now if you guys quickly tell me, the set pagination, where am I supposed to call it? Am I supposed to call it inside my fetch repos over here, or inside my fetch user info, or inside my event listener submit? Where am I supposed to call them? Tell me quickly. Don't you think that when we talk about pagination will be implemented only if there are repositories? If there are no repositories, pagination will not be created. That's why we have to call this inside fetch user repos only, right? So if I simply go here and I will simply tell it, please call my set pagination with an argument, although there's total repos, but we are not supposed to, or even let me do one thing. Let me remove this total repositories here. And let me simply say let total repos is equals 78. This makes much more sense. So I will put it over here. Let's see what it does. So let me go on my web page and let's go to document and let's search something. So add for 136, click on search. Let's wait a second. So once I do the search here, and if I do the search, it should display something. Okay, perfect. But how many buttons do we have? 16 buttons. So we are able to fetch our API. We are able to create our pagination buttons properly. Even though we will not create 16 because we have to create 5, and they should be dynamic in nature. We will do that as well. But as of now, depending on our code, we have created 16 buttons. Now, what are they supposed to do? They are simply supposed that when I click on 11, they should open the 11th 5 repository that I have. When I click on 18, they should open the 18. Although I can see pagination twice. Do you see, guys? I can see 1 to 16, 1 to 16 twice there. So it means something is wrong, which we will figure out. But as of now, I am interested in something more. Which is, you can see right now, when I click on 2, nothing happens. 3, nothing happens. 4, nothing happens. 5, nothing happens. What should happen? Don't you think when I click on 3, it should display me third page, third repository pages, third 5 repositories, 8th 5 repositories, 11th 5 repositories, so on and so forth. So it means I have to add on every single button which is being created over here. On every single button, I have to add a proper on click event where I will tell it, please call my fetch user repos and implement page with I. Right? So what am I going to do? I'm simply going to go over here and tell it over there simply one small logic, which is on my page btn, please implement an on click event. And on this on click event, please call a function. And what is that function supposed to do? That some function is supposed to fetch another five, another five, another five, depending on the button. And do you think this function fetch user repos is a function which is responsible for fetching an API depending on what the page number I pass? Yes or no? Depending on what the page number I pass? Ha ya na? Ha ya na? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Perfectly fine. So I will simply go call my fetch user repos here like this. But there's still one issue. If you look at this fetch user repos design, I have defined two arguments state, user comma page. Number second is done. It's I, because I will be the content on button. And if it is three, clicking on three will be passed here. But what is username? For username, I will go here and define an argument called as username. And then let me simply go here, pass the username here. And similarly, when I go to my fetch user repo, over here, I will pass my username. Don't you think? Now, whatever username I have typed inside the input field, now it's connected because I have passed username properly. So if it's Adfar136, it will be Adfar136 everywhere, right? Because I've connected username everywhere. Now let's go to my web page and let's try to see how it works. So let's refresh our page. Let's search our Adfar136 and let's search the user. So if I search the user in few seconds, or use local storage. Local storage for what? Please give me the logic behind that, because maybe if there's a logic, we will use local storage. And if I can clearly see that I have buttons. But let's see if it works. So 2, yes, it works. 3, it works. 4, it works. 5, it works. But you can see there's something very weird happening here. If you look at this, see, when I click on this, more 16 buttons are created. If I click on more 16 buttons are created, more 16 buttons are created, more 16 buttons are created. Do you see that? Which is there's a effect, side effect that's happening, and it's an obvious side effect. It has to work like this only. It has to work like this only. There is a side effect, which is every single time whenever the set pagination is called, it is actually calling my 16 buttons again, because that's what see I will tell you why it's happening. I will tell you why exactly. Whenever this function is called, tell me what is it supposed to do. Tell me what is it supposed to do. Whenever set pagination will be called, it is supposed to create 16 buttons every single time. Every single time it's supposed to create 16 buttons. That is why whenever you click on fetch user repos, this will be called again and again, resulting in more 16, more 16, more 16. That's why if you go to the output, you can see how many pagination buttons got created. A lot of pagination buttons got created. Yes or no? Do you see some issue here? Do you see some issue here? Oh, how can we resolve this? How can we resolve this? Of course, I will do that. As I said, I will do that, and this is the API that we have. See, when we talk about an API fetching, when we talk about getting data, there's a lot of things that we have to keep in mind. See what's happening, how many side effects we got. See, this is one of the very huge side effects that we have. So how can we resolve it? How can we resolve it? Something very interesting. How can we resolve it? And also another very important issue that we have. As of now, I am searching Adfar 136, and if I click search, you can clearly see it's going to give me user. And for Adfar 136, 16 buttons make sense. They make absolutely proper sense because there are 78 repositories. 16 buttons make sense. But if I search someone else, maybe I'm going to search, give me a username. Let's say if I remember correctly, it's Ankit. So Ankit 604. And if I try to search this particular user, Do you think for Ankit 16 buttons make sense? Of course not. Why? Because public repos are 20, so only 4 buttons make sense. That's why I will first of all resolve this and then we will be able to resolve it. Now, you guys tell me one thing. Where from I am going to get my repo list? First of all, I will pass an argument called as total repos here. Okay. And then I will remove this. Now, it means whenever set pagination is called, I am going to simply tell it pass total repos, depending on what total repos I am getting from that particular user. Now, you guys tell me quickly. I am calling this set pagination here. And inside this set pagination, we can clearly see that what is actually happening. My argument is username because I have a username here. Second argument is total pages, but I total repos, but I don't have that kind of data inside this function. Do I have any kind of data inside this function? Whenever you call this function, do you have any kind of way for my total repos to find total repos from this function? We don't have. How we have finding total repos from this function, fetch user info, but we do not have finding total repos from this function. Do we have? No, because there are only functions. There are only total repos, but we don't have any way. Yes or no? Am I clear? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? मुझे total repos इस function में कहीं पे मिलेगा ही नहीं. I won't be able to find total repos here. That's why what I will do is I will actually define one another function. So that with the help of that particular function, what I will be able to do, I will be able to fetch total repos. That's what I'm going to do. So let me define function and let me define function my total repos. Fetch total repos. Okay. And then I will simply go pass an argument to it called as username. Then let me go here. And inside this, I'm going to simply fetch this particular data, this particular API, because I know one very important thing, which is that from this API, I will find total repos because there is one thing, user.public repos here. There is a key which will tell me the count of total repos. So I'm simply going to go it and paste it here. So fetch this particular API and from this implement another dot then, and over here I will simply tell it please have a response, and from that please return what response dot public repos. Now let me call this, let me say where my x is equals to fetch total repos. Okay, and let me pass as of now adfer 136 and let's print what is x is going to be. So console.log x. Okay, and let's go to the output and let's try to see what we have inside inspect, and let me go to console. It's undefined. What is it? It's undefined. If you look at this, it's undefined. And I am fetching my repository here, fetch https, and although it's response in both cases, but I think that should work as well. Let me change this. Maybe there might be some issues with that. So result dot public repos, response result dot public repos. And I'm passing an argument called as fetch total repos. And it is returning. What are we trying to do here? We are telling it to return this. That's why it is undefined, because I was not able to implement return here. I was just trying to execute it. But unless and until I don't tell it to return, it's not going to work. So fetch total repos return. Now let me go here and let me try to see it's a promise. It's a promise that it's printing. So we can clearly see that when I try to execute this, it is returning a promise. And I know if I try to resolve that promise, I will get a count. So that's why what I'm going to do, I am going to go over here inside this instead of calling my set pagination directly. Try to understand what I'm trying to do here. I will simply tell it, call my fetch repos, total repos, and pass an argument to it, which is username, because username is here. Fetch user repos my username hai, right? And to this, since it's returning a promise, I will be implement dot them. And over here, I will get total repos. And let us do one thing. Let's try to console.log this total repos and see what happens. Let's try to see that. So let me go here and let's say I'm going to call adfer136, click on search. And once I do that, it should give me 16 or something like that, right? Or 70, sorry, 78, something like that. It should give me that particular count. So let's quickly search it. Perfect, it's giving me 78. So it means the function that I actually created here, it returns a promise, but if we resolve that promise every single time for that user, it will give me that particular count. So we have total repos here. And now instead of having total repos here, now instead of this, I will call my set pagination here with an argument called as username and then comma with total repos as an argument. Now, don't you think that this set pagination has username as well as total repos? And over here, it will now come to know properly how many buttons we have to create. Of course, it will come to know. So now let me go here and refresh my page. I will put my add for 136 here, click on search. And once I do that, we can clearly see 16 buttons here. And when I click on this, you can clearly see it's opening second, then it's opening third, then it's opening fourth, then it's opening fifth, then it's opening sixth. So we are able to solve our first problem, which is now depending on what the username is. So if I go here, write another username, which is Ankit, what was it? 604. And if I click on search here, as soon as I do that, there are only 4 buttons now. Not. So first problem is resolved. But there's still another problem. And there's also one another problem which we can see here, which is I don't have previous and next buttons. And I can create that. You can create that previous and you will be able to properly work with that. So let's not talk about that, okay? Although I will create previous next button in the next iteration, but there's still one issue that we have. Apart from it is creating every single time, again, same buttons. If I click on add for 136, click on search. Try to understand the problem. The problem is, as of now, once I do the search, it creates 16 buttons. Do you see any web application if there are thousands of items, all the pagination buttons are single line? No, you see maximum 4 to 5 buttons. And then you have previous, next, and they are dynamic in nature. Yes or no? Do you see such kind of buttons? Hi, Anna. Do you see like 16 buttons in a single row? Let's suppose there are 400 user repos. 400 divided by 5 is 40. Do you see 40 buttons? Not actually 80. Do you see 80 buttons? No, you don't see. You see 5 buttons, they are dynamic in nature. How do we create that? Now that is a logic. वो एक logic है. That is some kind of logic which we have to understand properly. Very properly. And we will not create our pagination like this. That's why this is one of the very basic way, but I am going to comment it so that you can have this as well. But now I have to implement logic. Okay, I have to implement logic. The logic is this, something like this. I want to create 5 buttons. Okay, let's suppose the buttons that I'm trying to create is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's suppose I will click on 5 button. It will open 5 repository pages. But don't you think at that point of time, the number of buttons at the page and should be updated with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? Or even if you don't do this, it should be updated to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Usually what you click, it comes at the center and it updates the pagination buttons. Do you see something like that? Yes or no? Do you see something like that? That we have 3, 4, 5. If I click on 7, the same pagination will be updated with 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I click on, let's suppose 100, at that point of time, my pagination becomes 98, 99, 100, 101, 102. So this is what we want actually as well. This is what we want, right? And of course, when we implement our pagination like this, I don't think find a way to create it. That's why I am going to use a better way of creating our pagination. One of the best ways with help of which we can create dynamic pagination. And this is what you have to learn. And even you have to implement same thing in your assignment. Remember that. So let me create a function, same function with the same name. That is set pagination. And over here to this, I'm going to pass 3 arguments this time. Number 1 is username. Number 2 is current page. Current page, what current page I am on, because I have to implement next and previous. In previous, we have to do current page -1. In next button, we have to do current page +1. That's why I'm implementing current page. And then finally, total repos. And over here, in a similar way, I'm going to say, let my pagination. What happened here? So please try to resolve this. यहाँ पे शायद मैंने कुछ remove किया था, and that's why it happened. And let me create, let my pagination is equals to, on my document, please get an element by ID, and that is going to be pagination. Done. After that, I will go here and I will simply tell it one small thing and try to understand what I'm trying to do. First of all, I can find the range, that how many total pages I have. So let me create that. Let my total pages is equals to, as my math.ceil, right? Math.ceil, which is similar to what we already did. That is total repos divided by 5. Wonderful. Perfectly fine. and I will tell it by default the pagination ka jo inner HTML hai, let's keep it by default empty. Later on, I will add things in it. Okay. Now we have to understand one small thing, and which is that we have to create a range. This time, the pagination that I have to set, it's somehow a little bit logical. It's not straightforward pagination. It's not like I will tell it total repos ko divide karo 5 se utne sare buttons banao. No, that's not what I'm going to do. But it is a little bit, we have to create the start range and we have to create end range. What the start page should be, what the end page should be, depending on what I'm clicking on. That's what it has to be, right? And let's suppose I have, let's suppose the same range that I talked about. It is I'm clicking on 100. If I click on 100, I know the range will be updated, right? If earlier it was something like this, let's suppose something it was 95, sorry, let's suppose it was 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. This was it. And then I click on 99. At that point of time, the range should of course be updated to 97, 98, 99, 100. So if I click on 99, this is what the range of buttons should be. Simple as that. And similarly, same thing should happen to any kind of combination of these buttons. That's where we have to come up with something very importantly, which is we have to use mathematics here to determine what is the range of buttons we want depending on what we click. Okay. And let's talk about that range in a second. But before that, I will create a function. And that function will simply return button. So whenever that function is called, it's going to return button, nothing else. So that's what I'm going to do. So let me create a button or let or constant or anything, whatever you want. So I will simply say constant create button. It is going to be a function. And whenever this function is being called, it is simply going to return a button, nothing else. Simple as that. And that button will have few of the arguments. You can create the same button in a different way. It's completely up to you. Number one is text. Number two is current page. Okay. And then over here, I will simply tell it, in this case, let my btn button is equals to on my document, please create a button. Okay. Now, what is that? Sorry, create element. Create element. And inside this element, I want you to create button buttons. Done. Finally, after that, for this button, I would want you to create its text content as text, which is being passed to this argument. Second thing, whenever this button on this button, I am having an on click event. Whenever anyone clicks on this, at that point of time, please do one thing, call a function in which you will simply fetch my total repos. Okay. And what is the total repo going to have? It's going to have username as an argument because that's what I have passed here. And second thing is current page. Okay. Second thing is current page, which is being passed as an argument to this particular button. Okay. And finally, I will simply go and return that button. Now, if you look at this particular functionality, whenever this function is called create button, every single time it's going to return a button, create a button to you. And then that button, once you click on it, it's going to fetch user info with a username and current page. Whatever text we have on that, that's what this button is going to be. Now, in this similar way, now I know there are two things, actually three things: previous button, next button, and in between the range. So let us go and create previous button first of all. So let me create previous button. For this, I will create constant my prev button is equals to on my document, or instead of saying document.create element, I know there's a function already. So let me go create a create button with a text that says prev. And at that point of time, the current page will be current page -1. Yes or no? Do you think that whenever we talk about previous button, at that point of time, I'm telling you to return a button with what? With the previous text and the current page -1. So at that point of time, if my current page is 10, the button that I will have an on-click event where current page is being passed as current page -1. So if it's 10, 9 is passed. So it will actually fetch 9. It will pass 9 to the fetch total repos function. Straightforward logic. Yes or no? Yes or no? Right? अब यहाँ पे एक चीज है, and also finally after that I will tell it on my pagination, please append the child. Now append the child over there, which is it? Previous button. Do you think I have created previous button properly? Give me a quick answer, yes or no, in the chat. Today's class we might extend with half an hour, but I think this is something that we have to understand. Give me a quick answer to this. Yes or no? Am I clear? Am I clear? Done. Now tell me one thing. Up to what time I should be able to click on previous. If my current page is 1, should I be able to click on previous button? Should I be able to click on previous button if my current page is 1? Of course not. I should not be able to click on previous button if my current page is 1. If my current page is 2, 3, 4, 5, in that case it works. So at this point of time, I will tell it, if my previous button on this, please implement its disabled attribute. And please make it true. Make disabled true only when my current page is equals to 1. Simple logic. Simple logic, straightforward logic. जो previous button, the disabled attribute that we have, make it true when my current page is equal to 1. Simple thing. In a similar way, I will be able to create next button as well. So Control C, and let me go here and Control V. And over here, I will try to add a comment as next button. And let me pass as next button. So next button. And to this, I will pass my current page +1 because that's what next button does. And let me go here and let me create next button. So next button and then next button here as well. Now, you guys tell me one thing, and this is a very simple and very straightforward question. Depending on, I will get an idea how well your logic exists. If you remember, previous page will be disabled when my current page is 1. Similarly, next button should be disabled when my current page is when my current page is. Come on, guys, I need few answers. When my current page is. Very good, Ankit. Very good. When my current page is total pages, which is 16 in Adfarashid's case. If it is total pages, it should be disabled. Simple as that. So we have created previous button. We have created next button. Now in between, we have to create the range of buttons. Now at one point of time, how many maximum buttons do we want? At one range between next and previous, how many buttons we want? 5 buttons or 10 buttons, depending on your range, whatever you want to create. So I will go here and I will simply say, first of all, let me add a comment, and that is range of buttons in between. Okay. And over here, I will start with my fixed value, which is at initially between previous and the last next. Between those two buttons, the maximum number of buttons, maximum button is 5. Now, when it is 5, now I have to define, I can simply tell it start a loop from start page to end page, maximum buttons, and create 5. I can do that, but it won't be dynamic. It will be 1 to 5 always. If I start a loop from I is equals to 1, less than maximum buttons, don't you think the range, the text on those buttons will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That's it, nothing else, right? But that's not what we want. Although it itself gave me a suggestion. What is that suggestion? I will go here and create a loop. Leave the start page aside, although let me create 2 variables as of now. Let my start page, and let me keep it as like this, and I will update them later on. Let me keep them empty as of now, undefined by that I mean. And let me create a for loop in which I will simply tell it, start my range, let my I is equals to start page. Done. Then let my I should be less than end page. Done. And then I plus, although it's less or equals to, right? Because 5 buttons are there. And meanwhile, this happens, the start page, end page, I want you to create my button. So let me go and define constant, and I will simply say page button. So let me say page button button is equals to, I will call a function which is called a create button. Pass both arguments as I. And then finally, I will go and implement pagination. And on that pagination, I will simply tell them to append the child. And what is that child? My page button. Now see what I'm doing. If you look at this, you can see that, let's suppose at this point of time, start page is 1, end page is 5. Let's suppose for our discussion. Even let me do that. Start page is 1, our end page is 5. For our discussion, let's do this. So 1 to 5. So how many times this loop will execute itself? 5 times. And 5 times it will call this function create button. Now, when this create button is called, it receives 2 arguments, text I, this. So 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. Don't you think it's going to return a particular button? On that button, it will contain 1. And then when you click on that, it's going to fetch, make page 1. When it is 2, it's going to make text on button 2, fetch the toad repos on 2 page, so on and so forth, right? That's what it does. But start page and end page, their logic has to be different. It depends on what we are clicking on. It depends on the range that we have. So range has to be changing. Depends on what we click on. And we know when we click on any button, current page changes. So if I click on, let's suppose my start page is 1. So when my I is 3, this I is 3, 3 comma 3, 3 comma 3, 3 comma 3 here will be passed. So on my button, text will be 3. But what will it fetch? Third 5 repos from my repository, right? So it means that when I click on it, there's one parameter that changes, which is current page. Current page changes. When I click, current page changes. That's why I will update my logic here. I will tell it, please and please set the range in a way which is going to determine depending on what my current page is. So if my current page is 5, left side 4, 5, 3, 4, right side 6, 7. 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what the range should be. Over here, we use a logic called as math.max. Now, math.max is a function. If we pass 2 arguments to it, 3, 4, it's going to return the maximum value out of these two. 3, 4. What's the maximum value? 4, it's going to return 4. So 2 arguments, it's going to receive. What's the maximum value? It's going to return that. And over here, I will write 1 comma. 1 comma what? What my current page is. Minus math, the math that I have, dot floor. Math dot floor. And over here, what my maximum buttons are, divide by 2. Let's try to understand what it does. In a second, using my notepad or using my pen, I will tell you what it exactly does. Similarly to my end page, the logic that we remember, we have to remember this, or we can actually understand this as well, and then we can remember it. Math.min over there, and over here we have to pass 2 arguments as total pages, number 1, comma, start page that we have, -1. So what is the minimum of these two? Make my end page that. Let's try to understand it using mathematics. For our discussion, let's say my current page is 7. Or let's say anything, whatever number you see. So for our discussion, let's understand my current page that I have is equals to 7. Let's calculate start page. So in this case, start page is math.max. 1 comma. My current page, 7 minus math.floor. Maximum buttons divided by 2. What is that? Maximum buttons divided by 2, it's 2.5 with floor. That is 2. Yes or no? So math.maximum. So it will become math.maximum of 1 comma 5. Now what is the answer to this? What is the answer to this? Quickly tell me. Very good. It's 5. So in this case, when my current page is 7, my start page becomes 5. Very good. What is my end page? Let's try to calculate end page. End page is minimum math.min of total pages. Total pages is, I know for my case, it is 16, comma start page -1. So 5 minus 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. Yes or no? Right? Although this is not the exact logic. Why? Because I have missed a small thing here, which is start page plus maximum buttons -1. So plus maximum buttons -1. This is the logic. So start page is at that point of time 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. So 10 minus 1 is 9. Now tell me, what is the minimum of it? Minimum of it 9. So my range becomes 5 to 9. Start page is 5, end page is 9. So don't you think it is 5 to 9, which means buttons will be created 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you can clearly understand, if you write mathematical logic like this, doesn't matter what the current page is, it will always be in the center. Let's take another example for your better understanding, okay? Better understanding. Let's take our current pages. Let's suppose for us it is 14. Current page is 14. So don't you think we want at that point of time, this is what the range of buttons should be? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Let's see that. At that point of time, my start page becomes math.max. Math.max 1 comma current page, which is 14, minus math.floor, which is 2.5, which is 2, which is math.max of 1 comma 12, which means 12. So the start page becomes 12. So start page for this loop becomes 12. What is the end page? End page becomes math.min. Math.min total pages, which is 16, comma. At that point of time, start page is 12 plus maximum buttons, which is 5 minus 1. So 12 plus 5 is 17, minus 1 is 16. So in this case, it's going to return 16, and we can clearly see it's 16. Am I clear? Am I clear? Do we understand what's happening here? Yes or no? So with these two formulas, we are able to create dynamic range. And that's what, of course, it makes sense as well, because we have to create a loop in a way so that it will create dynamic ranges. Yes or no? Now tell me one thing. Total pages is 16. And what if my current page is 16? In that case, what's it going to do? Total page, although let's discuss this in a second, but let's say if it works right now. Okay, so let's see, and then we will discuss this case, the last case, if my current page is 16, which is total pages. So now we have defined our set pagination. We have defined our set pagination properly with proper logic, whatever the logic was supposed to be. Now I have called the set pagination with username, current page, total pages, but I have not passed current page over here. What is the current page that we have to pass here? Current page. Do we have page here? We have page. So let me pass page. So comma page. Done. Very good. And let's see how it works. If I go here, let me refresh my page. Let me say add for 136. Let me click on search. Let's hope it works. It takes a little bit of time. Don't know why. Perfect. It works. Now we can clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 previous. All the previous. Why is that? Because I have implemented previous button here and I have implemented next here. So let's make it next. Done. And let's now see the output. So if I go here, let's go here and let's refresh the page and let's go for 136 search it. If I search it, we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 next. Let me click on 5. Once I click on 5, the range should change. Although it is not. When I click on 5, nothing is happening. When I click on 4, nothing is happening. 2, 1, nothing is happening. It means on click, there's some thing wrong with our on click on the buttons. And let's try to figure out what that is. So right now we can clearly see everything is working. Even if I go into console, let's see if it works. Inside console, let me try to erase this. Let's see on 3, is there anything working? No, nothing is happening. So on click somehow is a little bit messy. Let's see. So why do we have on click? Okay, so when I am on clicking on this at that point of time, please fetch my user repos with username and term. It's fine. So what is the issue now? And finally return that. Okay, so then I am calling my create button here with I. So username will be passed here. Username is passed here. Then why am I not able to fetch it? There's a small debugging that we have to do. Small debugging, small issue somewhere. Okay, small issue. It's not a big issue, it's a small issue. So we have on click text content properly on click as well. So what's the issue? Then these buttons here, and we have pagination, page buttons, create button being called as well, and with I, perfectly fine. And let me see one thing. Let me do one thing. If I remove this over here and let me simply say console.log, click it. Let's see if it works. Then we will see fetch. Let me refresh my page and let's say for 136, click on search. If you do not see your things working, use console always. That is the best tool that you can have. Console is one of the best debugging tools that you have. So let me erase this and let me go here to console is working, which means I am able to call that event, but somehow fetch user repos is not working. So let's pass my fetch user repos, or what do we have to call here? What is the logic that we have to do? Please shift button in the middle screen. What do you mean by that? Please shift middle button. What do you mean by that? So fetch user repos. Over here, I will pass username, comma, and I will pass my current page. So let me pass my current page here. Okay. And then when I'm calling this fetch user, sorry, there's some small issue somewhere. There's some error. So this for loop ends here. Could not find pagination. Did you mean set page? No, I mean pagination. I think I have closed my function here, right? No, no. Total pages. I'm not using total pages anywhere. Why is that? Function is closing somewhere early. There's a small syntax error that we have, nothing else. So somewhere curly braces. So this for loop is ended here. So we have set pagination. There's some issue here with small syntax. Let's see where it ends. So my function is starting here, and this is here. So this is closing here. Then we have our previous button here. Loop starts here and here. Okay, so where is this curly brace? Somewhere there's a small issue that we have. Did you mean pagination? Pagination button is created, right? Pagination. Am I missing button cover हो जा रहा है? This one. So no, there's a small syntax issue that we have, and let's close this, and let's try to. Where am I closing this? I think create button function is ending here, and okay, so this one is wrong. There's only supposed to be one, and then there's supposed to be this. Now it's working. Perfect. Okay, so now it works. Now it knows what pagination is. There was one curly brace that I was putting extra here only. Okay, and that's what was happening. And let's try to see if it works now. So let me go here and let me try to add for 136 search. Let's see if it works now. Perfect. And let's click on 3. So now there's some issues. Some issues we have. What are the issues that we have? So previous and next buttons are working, but somehow. And why is this console coming into? This console is coming because of my repos. Where am I printing repo list? Let's remove this console here because I don't need this. And then in my pagination, fetch user repos, username, comma, current page. So let's pass current page. Done. And username dot current page is this I comma I. So now I think it should work. So let's say add for 136, click on add for 136, search it. Very good. 3. Very good. Now it works. So you can see now range is also updating. So I was missing. He wants to say because of face came, we are okay. Okay, got it. So let me close this, and my page is not visible because of the camera. Is that what you mean? Got it. So how do we change this? Why my cursor? So let's see that what I can do is I can divide my screen into two parts, and let's see this. Now I think it should be visible now, right? Done. Perfect. Okay. See now, if you look at this code, if I write add for 136, click on search, we can clearly see I am able to get the data. And not only that, we are able to get our proper pagination working as well. That too in proper dynamic manner. If you look at this, if I click on 2, it gives me second repositories here. If I click on 3, it gives me 3. Because at that point from start page, end page, the range is like this. But as soon as I click on 5, if I click on 5, range changes. You can clearly visualize that. I hope you should be able to visualize it. If I click on this particular 7, now the range changed to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I click on 9, the range changed to 7, 8, 9, 11. Similarly, so on and so forth. And this is what you usually see on the internet as well. Like this kind of pagination, which is dynamic in nature. You don't see hundreds of buttons, thousands of buttons, depends on the data. You just see dynamic behavior of your buttons, whatever they are supposed to be and however they are supposed to be. If I click on next, you can clearly see next, next. And finally, if I click on next, if I click on 16, the last page, next page is disabled. Similarly, if I go to my first page, here, let's quickly go to first page. You can clearly see now previous is disabled. So this is what we mean by original pagination. I hope this makes sense. I hope we have completely understood how pagination can be implemented in a particular data when we have more than data that we can accommodate on our website. In that case, we need pagination, and this is how we will implement our pagination. We have to implement our start range, we have to implement our end range. So start page, end page, depending on these two formulas. So you can remember them, or you can understand them mathematically, which I have also explained. Do we have any questions now, guys? Do we have any questions? Yes or no? No, perfectly fine. And even if you remember, if we implement pagination in this manner, it was creating same pagination again and again, again and again, again and again. It was creating a lot of buttons again and again, which we do not want. That's why we had to create pagination like this. So, which is absolutely a better way of creating a pagination. So I will launch an assignment which is going to be related to API fetching, implementing these functionalities, and many more. Maybe I will implementing a functionality called as sorting. Sort these repositories in an ascending order, or any other functionality. Sorting, filter, implement filter, do whatever, but you have to use proper array methods. And we have implemented most of the methods, right? So this is the address link. Please submit this address. We were supposed to deal with local storage as well, but unfortunately, we don't have that much time in today's class. But maybe, sir, there will be question answer session for the interview. What does that mean? Are you asking that will there be any mock interviews that I will provide? Anil, yes, there will be, if that is the question. Once React is done, with respect to front end, we will have mock interviews. But I think the list that I actually have extracted, there are around 20 to 25 students who are passing the criteria. Not all of you. Okay, so you have to attend classes in React, especially later on, because same 25, 29 students might reduce to only 5, might reduce to only 10. So you have to attend always the classes. You have to attend the assignments that we have. And the most important thing is you have to help me reach out this course, separate this course to as many people as we can. Okay, that's the only criteria. I will launch the assignment. And also, there was one other functionality that I was supposed to teach you with respect to this project, but we don't have enough time. That's why we will implement that functionality in one of our React projects, which is local storage. Okay, so local storage will be taught now in React, not here. Okay, मजा आया इस project में कि नहीं? Be honest. Quickly. ठीक है ना? तो मैं आपको जो API दूंगा आपके assignment के लिए, that API will be this API. Okay, this one, this API, news API. So you have to log in there and you have to submit it there. And आपको इसी पे एक assignment बनाना होगा, full-fledged assignment, full-fledged project. Although if you look at this project that we created, there's no CSS that we have implemented. No CSS, absolutely zero CSS. And definitely you have to implement CSS if you talk about your project. So proper project mein, you have to create a proper CSS. So see what other functionalities you can create and try to understand how you can deal with APIs. Okay. So thank you so much, guys, for watching this session. Please make sure you add a valuable comment. You help me share the React post with a lot of people. Please repost my LinkedIn post. Please comment there and share your feedback there. And also, please and please, I request all of you to please put comment on this particular YouTube video that we have attended class of today. Okay, sir, API, कौन सी API चाहिए? This one. I think you can watch the video and you can write it yourself, right? But still, let me copy this API. Write username after that and it will work. So this is the API. Slash username, then slash repos. You will find all the repos of that user. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. Have a great week ahead, and definitely we will have a portfolio session very soon during the weekdays. That is the plan, and also we might have a doubt session this time as well. And we will have doubt session 100%. Okay, we will have. मैंने इसी week लिया होता, but there was Diwali, and that's why I was not able to. But definitely this week we will have a doubt session on Google Meet as well. Thank you so much, guys. Bye, everyone. See you in the next class. Take care. Bye.